So today we're going to talk about the latest UA for 5e, Mystic Subclasses, which the PDF provides 4 subclasses for the Monk, Paladin, Rogue, and Warlock. Before we dive deep into the subclasses, I would say my first impressions of these subclasses are pretty positive, as each of them seemed really fun to play and provided an interesting twist or change to each of the subclasses, so I would say overall, first impression-wise, it's pretty good. Let's start with the Monk, and with its subclass, Warrior of Mystic Arts, which to sum up is a spellcasting monk similar to the Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster, which they gain at level 3 with the spellcasting feature. But unlike those two subclasses, Mystic Warrior, which I'm gonna call it that so I don't have to say the full name each time, gets Sorcerer spells, and thankfully their spellcasting trait is Wisdom and not Charisma, like their Sorcerer pals. But jumping back into the feature itself, like Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster, the Mystic Warrior is a 1/3 spellcaster, so they start with first level spells at level 3 and only gain 4th level spells at 19th level. Mystic Warrior's next feature is Mystic Focus at level 6, which basically similar to Sorcerer's Font of Magic, allows the monk to use focus points to regain spell slots and vice versa, which like the Sorcerer is pretty useful and good, especially with the uncanny metabolism feature that they normally get. And it's not too hard to regain focus points, but obviously not being a full caster doesn't make it as useful as Sorcerer, but still overall pretty good. Mystic Warrior also gains another 6th level feature with Mystic Fighting Style, which similar to Eldritch Knight's similar feature, the Mystic Warrior can sacrifice an attack to cast a cantrip with casting time of an action, which I would say especially on a monk is particularly potent, since for instance they can gain access to the Mind Sliver cantrip, and as long as the target fails the intelligence save, they can use that -d4 to help a stunning strike go through, which, again, not OP per se, but allows the monk to just do it by themselves. Their next feature at level 11, Centered Focus, allows the monk when they use a focus point on any of their monk focus abilities, like Flurry of Blows, Patient Defense, yada yada yada, they gain advantage on saving throws to concentrate on spells, which at this level there are some strong spells to maintain concentration on, and it's easy to do since most of the time that is what we are going to be doing anyways. Probably most of them would have, like, Warcaster, but if you don't have Warcaster for whatever reason, I would say it's a pretty good ability. Lastly, at 17th level, the Mystic Warrior gets improved Mystic Fighting Style, which, as written, says, when you take the attack action, on your turn you can replace 2 of your attacks with the casting of one of your 1st level or 2nd level Sorcerer spells. That's a casting time of 1 action. So as written, this ability is incredibly niche to obviously just borderline not working at all, since monks by default only get 2 attacks with multi-attack, which definitely leads me to believe that this is supposed to be only 1 attack and is a misprint. So in the likely case that is true, that's supposed to be just 1 attack, then yeah, it is a nice improvement, since you can now expend that attack to cast Hold Person, and then attack them on the same turn without any points spent. Overall, I really like this subclass, as it complements the monk very well, and honestly in some ways outperforms its Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster counterparts with some of the combos that it can do that they cannot. Next is the Paladin with Oath of the Spellguard, which the whole oath and playstyle is based around stopping enemy casters and bolstering your own ally casters. At level 3, they gain 3 features, starting with Guardian Bond. As an action, they can expend a Channel Divinity and target a creature within 5 feet for 1 hour or until that Paladin goes unconscious. Whenever the target gets hit by an attack roll, they can expend a reaction to add their Charisma modifier to the target's AC to possibly make the attack miss, which I would say is a pretty nice defensive ability. Next is their spell list, and I would say it's a pretty good spell list, with notable standouts being Shield, Counterspell, Dispel Magic, and Circle of Power, with Shield definitely being the obvious winning spell on this list, and extremely nice on a Paladin. The last of the level 3 features is Spellguard Strike, which what it does is whenever a creature within your range is casting a spell with a verbal, somatic, or material, you can take a reaction to attack said creature. Not super flashy, but I don't know, it just seems like a very nice feature, and if you combo it with Mage Slayer, probably pretty good. At level 7, they get Aura Concentration, which simply, your Paladin aura allows allies within the aura to get advantage on maintaining concentration. Which I will say seems nice at first, and is a good ability, but most spellcasters usually have Warcaster, so they already have advantage. So in some ways, it's rather redundant with most parties, but I'd say it's still a good feature. Next feature at level 15 is Spell Breaking Blade, which upgrades Spell Strike by whenever you expend a reaction to do so, you could then cast Counterspell using the same reaction. I will say this is a pretty nice feature since it could possibly prevent an enemy from casting a powerful spell, or probably more aptly prevent them from teleporting, thus either making them stay put or having to expend movement to get away from you. Lastly, at level 20 they gain Eternal Spell Guard, which as a bonus action, the Paladin upgrades their Aura Protection to gain the following benefits for 1 minute. The target of your Guardian Bond has resistance to all damage, you and your allies have advantage on saving throws against spells, and spell attacks against you and your allies have disadvantage. Overall, I would say this subclass is pretty strong, not OP, but any spellcaster would likely love to have this Paladin on their party, in fear being against them. Next is the Rogue with Magic Stealer, which as the name suggests, their whole gimmick is stealing magic and twisting it against their foes. At level 3, they start with the feature Empower Sneak Attack, which whenever a creature casts a level 1 or higher spell, they can spend a reaction to absorb that magic and empower their own sneak attack, by adding a number of d6 of force damage equal to the level of the spell that they had absorbed, until the end of their next turn. A pretty good feature since other than Uncanny Dodge, the rogues aren't really using their reaction all too much, unless you're a melee rogue, and they can absorb magic from their allies with 0 penalty, and depending on the level of the spell, it can be kinda worth it. Next they get Drain Magic, which is, the rogue can spend a magic action to touch a willing creature, and can end one ongoing level 1 or 2 spell on said creature, and the target regains a spell slot at level 2 or lower. A decent feature that can end some magic effects, but the problem lies in that there's not a ton of spells at that level that will be cast on players, like that often, other than like Hold Person or Suggestion, but otherwise not too many other spells. Not a bad feature, but not something that will commonly occur in gameplay. Next they get Magical Sabotage, which gives new Cunning Strike options. Spell Susceptibility, which for 2d6 gives the target disadvantage on their next saving throw against a spell. Disrupt Spell, which for 3d6 until the start of your next turn, if the target casts a spell, they must make an intelligence saving throw, and on a failure, the spell dissipates, and the expended action, bonus action, or reaction to do so. And Steel Resistance, for 2d6, as the name suggests, the rogue chooses one damage type, and if that target has a damage resistance to that type, the target loses that resistance and the rogue gains it until the start of their next turn. Overall, pretty good options in my opinion that are very much worth the sacrifice and the damage, especially with spell susceptibility and disrupt spell are very good options, and even Steel Resistance in some cases will come up pretty often. At level 13, they get 2 features: Occult Shroud, which basically every long rest they can cast non-detection, but only on themselves, and it lasts for 24 hours. A very niche spell and a very niche feature, but it's free and it lasts until a long rest, in which then you cast it again, so, no harm, no foul. Next they get Improved Drain Magic, which first makes it a bonus action, and on top of that, can now drain 3rd level spells. It's an improvement for sure, and there are more spells at 3rd level that can affect the party badly, that you could stop. But even then, still not too many, and I think the bonus action probably should just been there from the get-go at level 3, but still not an awful feature. Lastly, the rogue gets Eldritch Implosion, which whenever the rogue uses the empowered sneak attack, they can force the target to make a con save, and on a failure the spell dissipates with no effect. The target is stunned until the start of its next turn. If it's only the first part, it'll be an okay feature, but the second part does bring in a step up, since even though it is a con save, if you can pull it off, not only do you stop a very likely powerful spell from going off, you can then stun them and do massive amount of damage, since you have advantage on them with the sneak attack that you just buffed up. So, I would say, pretty good capstone feature. So overall, the Magic Stealer Rogue is pretty good. It does have some not-so-great features, but for the most part, it's a pretty good subclass. Lastly, we have the Warlock with the Vestige Patron, which is a very unique patron in that it is a dying god, and basically uses what I would imagine is the remnants of its power on you, which, before we even get to its features, I think is a pretty cool and unique flavor for the Warlock. Its first level feature is, at level 3, is Vestige Companion, which basically allows the Warlock to summon an avatar of its vestige to help you in combat, and gains ability based on whether the vestige is a celestial, fiend, or undead. Next is the spell list, which is an interesting twist on it, since instead of a standardized spell list, the Warlock must choose a spell list from one of the 4 cleric domains from the 2024 PHP: Life, Light, Trickery, or War, and gain those spells as they level up. They state, as an example, with the War domain, they would get Guiding Bolt, Magic Weapon, Shield of Faith, and Spiritual Weapon prepared from the get-go. I like this feature in concept, but I kinda wish you weren't limited by these 4 subclasses, since it'd be pretty cool to not have to be able to choose any cleric subclass for not only spell potential, but to not have RP of your patron be limited by those 4 subclasses. But, casting that aside, they all get pretty good spell lists, so overall it is a good feature. Obviously the standout being Light, since you get Fireball, so that's usually always pretty good. Next, they get Vestige Recovery at level 6, which the Vestige Companion regains their Divine Power feature every short rest or long rest, or whenever they use Magic Cunning. A good improvement, but doesn't blow my mind. Next at level 10, they get Aura Power, in which the Vestige Companion now can summon an aura in which you, the Vestige, and allies within 30 feet gain resistance to fire, necrotic, and radiant damage, along with being immune to Charmed and Frightened. And on top of all of that, when you drop the 0 hit points while within the aura, you instead change your hit points equal to the Warlock level, plus Charisma modifier. And the companion is dismissed until a long rest. This is a pretty good feature. Having resistance to all those damage types is very solid, and being able to bring yourself back up from the dead is pretty good. Albeit, I wish you could choose to do so instead of being forced to, but usually you would rather bring yourself back instead of having allies expend spell slots or potions to do so, so I would say it's overall good. Lastly, at level 14, Semblance of Life. You can cast, depending on the vestige type, summon Celestial, Fiend, or Undead, in which the vestige becomes the creature you have summoned, and it doesn't expend, the spell slot or material components to cast said spell. It's a decent capstone, and honestly, I kind of feel like this one and the aura should have been flipped. But I kind of get why, since Summon Fiend is a 6th level spell. But even then, I don't think it would be that powerful to give a level 10 character that spell, but that might be just me. Overall, a good feature, and Vestige Patron overall is a pretty good subclass, and in my opinion, the most unique subclass of the bunch. And with that, that is the Mystic Subclasses UA. Overall, a pretty good UA, with some good subclasses for each one, with very little complaints that I have for all of them. My favorite from a pure mechanical standpoint is the Monk, since Spellcasting Monk is pretty potent, but otherwise I really like both the Paladin and the Warlock. The Rogue could use the most love, but even then it's still a pretty decent subclass. So I'm very interested to see what book these subclasses officially release in, and how they change them. Hopefully only for the better. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see other videos in the TTRPG space, check out any of these videos. Bye for now.